Many people spend their lives searching for meaning as if it were a distant destination or a hidden reward waiting at the end of great effort. They chase success, recognition, relationships, and carefully defined goals, hoping that one day everything will finally make sense. Yet even when these things are achieved, a quiet feeling of incompleteness often remains. The search continues, not because life lacks meaning, but because it is being looked for in the wrong place. Buddhism offers a quieter and more grounding perspective. It does not point outward or upward. It points inward and toward what is already present. The meaning of life is not hidden behind extraordinary achievement or future fulfillment. It is often overlooked because it appears in ordinary moments that the mind rushes past. When attention slows, meaning stops feeling distant and begins to feel immediate. This reflection invites you to release the pressure to define life perfectly or justify its worth. Instead of searching for answers, it asks you to listen carefully to experience as it is. What if the meaning of this life is not something to solve or figure out, but something to live fully, moment by moment, exactly where you are now? The search for meaning often feels heavy because it begins with a quiet assumption that something is missing. The mind looks at life and feels that it must be incomplete unless it leads to a clear conclusion, purpose, or achievement that explains everything. This belief creates pressure. Each experience becomes a step toward an imagined destination, and each moment is evaluated based on whether it brings us closer to a final answer. When life does not deliver this answer, frustration slowly builds. Effort is made, goals are pursued, and milestones are reached, yet the feeling of satisfaction fades quickly. The mind then assumes that the meaning must lie further ahead, just beyond the next achievement or understanding. This constant reaching creates exhaustion, not because life lacks meaning, but because the mind never allows itself to rest. Buddhism teaches that this exhaustion comes from a misunderstanding of what life is asking of us. Life is not a problem that needs to be solved or justified. It is not a puzzle designed to produce a final explanation. When meaning is treated as something to be found in the future, the present moment is quietly dismissed as insufficient. The mind overlooks what is happening now because it is too focused on what it believes should happen later. This forward-reaching habit creates restlessness. Even during calm moments, the mind is occupied with questions about purpose, direction, and outcome. Instead of experiencing life directly, attention is pulled into speculation. The simple act of being alive becomes overshadowed by the need to define why it matters. Buddhism points out that meaning feels heavy when it is turned into a demand. The mind demands that life prove its value, explain itself, or meet certain conditions before it can be appreciated. When these demands are not met, disappointment follows. Yet this disappointment is not caused by life itself. It is caused by the expectation placed upon it. When meaning is seen as a destination, every moment before arrival feels incomplete. The mind treats the present as a waiting room rather than a living space. This creates a sense of lack, even when life is full. Joy becomes temporary, and peace feels fragile, because they are measured against an imagined future fulfillment. Buddhism offers relief by shifting attention away from this future-oriented struggle. It teaches that life does not need to lead somewhere else in order to be meaningful. Meaning is not something that appears at the end of understanding. It is something that arises when the mind stops demanding more from the present moment. When the mind releases the idea that meaning must be achieved, it begins to soften. Restlessness decreases because there is nothing to chase. The present moment, once overlooked, becomes complete in itself. Breathing, listening, feeling, and understanding no longer feel like steps toward something else. They are enough. The heaviness of the search fades when the mind learns to rest where it is. Meaning no longer feels distant or difficult. It becomes quiet, immediate, and natural. By letting go of the belief that life must deliver a final answer, the mind discovers that it was never missing anything at all. According to Buddhist thought, life does not require a final explanation in order to be meaningful. Meaning is not something that must be defined, proven, or justified through ideas or conclusions. It is found directly in experience itself. Life is not waiting for interpretation before it becomes valuable. Its value is already present in the act of living. The mind often believes that meaning must come from understanding life intellectually. It looks for reasons, frameworks, or philosophies that explain why existence matters. While understanding can be helpful, Buddhism teaches that relying solely on explanation keeps the mind one step removed from life itself. Explanation lives in thought. Meaning lives in experience. Breathing, walking, listening, feeling, and understanding are not steps toward meaning. They are not preparation for something more important. They are complete expressions of life as it is happening. When the breath is felt fully, nothing else is required. When a sound is heard clearly, the moment does not need improvement. These experiences are not lacking. They are whole. The habit of seeking explanation often pulls attention away from what is actually happening. The mind becomes busy asking questions such as, "What does this mean?" or "What is this leading to?" In doing so, it overlooks the richness of the present moment. Buddhism gently points out that when attention leaves the present in search of explanation, meaning feels distant. When attention is fully present, even the simplest moments carry depth. Washing your hands can feel grounding. Sitting quietly can feel complete. Sharing silence with another person can feel more meaningful than many words. These moments do not become meaningful because they represent something else. They are meaningful because they are experienced fully. Meaning arises naturally when experience is met without distraction or resistance. Distraction pulls the mind away from the moment. Resistance pushes against it. Both prevent direct contact with life. When attention rests gently on what is happening, the mind no longer needs to search for significance. Significance reveals itself quietly. Buddhism teaches that presence transforms ordinary moments, not because the moments change, but because the way they are met changes. When attention is scattered, life feels empty or dull. When attention is steady, life feels vivid and alive. The same moment can feel meaningless or meaningful, depending on the quality of awareness. Life as experience does not mean ignoring reflection or wisdom. It means grounding understanding in direct contact rather than abstraction. Wisdom grows from seeing clearly what is happening now, not from constructing theories about what should matter. When experience is allowed to be primary, understanding follows naturally. Many people feel that their lives lack meaning because they are comparing their experiences to imagined ideals. Buddhism invites a simpler view. Meaning is not measured by importance, achievement, or recognition. It is found in presence. When you are fully here, life is already complete. This perspective removes pressure. Life no longer has to prove itself. Each moment does not need to justify its existence. Whether the moment is pleasant or difficult, it is still an expression of life unfolding. When this is understood, even challenges carry meaning, not because they are desired, but because they are lived with awareness. Life as experience encourages intimacy with the present moment. It asks you to listen fully, feel honestly, and notice gently. Meaning is not added to these moments. It emerges from them. When explanation loosens its grip, experience steps forward, and life begins to feel quietly meaningful without effort. Buddhism points toward a simple truth. Life does not need to be explained in order to matter. When it is lived directly, with awareness and openness, meaning is already here. Many people grow up believing that a meaningful life should be smooth, successful, and free from suffering. Difficulty is often seen as a sign that something has gone wrong or that life is failing to meet its purpose. When pain appears, the mind may question the value of life itself. Buddhism offers a very different understanding. It teaches that difficulty, loss, and uncertainty are not mistakes or punishments. They are natural parts of being human. Suffering appears in many forms. It may come as physical pain, emotional loss, disappointment, fear, or the uncertainty of not knowing what comes next. Everyone encounters it, regardless of background or effort. Buddhism does not ask us to deny this reality or escape from it. Instead, it invites us to understand suffering clearly and honestly. When suffering is avoided, it often grows stronger. The mind tries to push pain away, distract itself, or pretend it should not be there. This resistance adds another layer of struggle on top of the original difficulty. Buddhism teaches that suffering becomes heavier when it is rejected and lighter when it is understood. Understanding does not mean enjoying pain. It means meeting it without denial or judgment. When suffering is allowed to be seen, it begins to teach. One of its first lessons is compassion. Experiencing difficulty makes the heart more sensitive to the struggles of others. It softens judgment and increases empathy. When you recognize your own vulnerability, it becomes easier to understand the pain of those around you. Suffering also teaches patience. Difficult situations rarely resolve immediately. They require endurance and presence. Through this process, the mind learns to stay with discomfort without collapsing or rushing for escape. This patience is not passive. It is a quiet strength that allows you to remain steady even when circumstances are uncertain. Humility is another lesson that suffering offers. Pain reminds us of our limits. It shows that not everything can be controlled or planned. This realization reduces arrogance and opens the heart to learning. Humility allows wisdom to grow because it removes the belief that we already know everything. Without difficulty, wisdom remains shallow. When life is always comfortable, understanding stays at the surface. Challenges force the mind to look deeper. They question assumptions, expose attachments, and reveal what truly matters. Through suffering, the mind learns the difference between what is essential and what is temporary. Buddhism does not glorify pain, nor does it suggest seeking it. It simply recognizes that suffering has a role. When pain is met with awareness rather than avoidance, it becomes a source of insight. It shows where attachment exists, where fear hides, and where understanding is needed. Even loss carries meaning when it is understood. Loss reveals impermanence, one of the central truths of life. It teaches appreciation for what was present and acceptance of change. Through loss, the heart learns to value connection without clinging. Uncertainty also plays a role in understanding life. Not knowing what will happen next can feel uncomfortable, but it teaches trust and presence. When the future cannot be controlled, attention naturally returns to the present moment. In this way, uncertainty deepens awareness. In Buddhism, the meaning of life is not found by eliminating suffering, but by learning from it. Pain contributes to meaning not by being pleasant, but by being honest. It reflects life as it truly is, not as we wish it to be. When suffering is understood, it no longer feels pointless. It becomes part of the path toward clarity and compassion. Through this understanding, life becomes meaningful not because it is easy, but because it is real. Suffering does not diminish the value of life. When met with awareness, it deepens it. One of the most liberating insights in Buddhism is the understanding that life does not owe us meaning in any specific form. Many people carry an unspoken expectation that life should eventually explain itself, reward effort with clarity, or reveal a clear purpose that makes everything worthwhile. When this expectation is present, life often feels disappointing. Moments are measured against what they should provide, and when they fall short, dissatisfaction arises. Buddhism teaches that this dissatisfaction does not come from life itself, but from the demand placed upon it. When the mind expects life to deliver meaning in a particular shape, success, fulfillment, recognition, or certainty, it creates conditions for frustration. Life unfolds according to causes and conditions, not according to personal demands. Releasing these demands is not resignation, it is freedom. When expectations drop, life no longer feels like it is failing to meet a standard. It simply unfolds as it is. This unfolding may include joy, difficulty, confusion, beauty, and loss. Without the pressure of expectation, these experiences no longer need to justify themselves. They are allowed to exist without being evaluated as meaningful or meaningless. Meaning does not need to arrive as a grand purpose or defining achievement. Buddhism points toward a quieter understanding. Meaning exists in ordinary actions and simple responses. It is present in how you speak to others, how you listen, and how you respond when things do not go as planned. These moments may appear small, but they shape the quality of life more deeply than distant goals. Letting go of the belief that life must provide a clear purpose allows appreciation to arise naturally. When appreciation replaces demand, the mind becomes receptive. It notices kindness, connection, and understanding where it once noticed lack. Appreciation does not require life to be perfect. It only requires presence. This shift changes how challenges are experienced. Instead of asking why something happened or what it is meant to teach, the mind learns to meet difficulty with openness. This openness reduces struggle. Life no longer needs to prove its worth. It is experienced directly, moment by moment. Letting go of demands also softens the relationship with uncertainty. When life is no longer expected to provide clear answers, uncertainty becomes less threatening. The mind stops insisting on knowing what comes next. Trust grows, not because the future is guaranteed, but because the present is enough. In Buddhism, peace often arises not from gaining something new, but from releasing what was never necessary to carry. The belief that life must owe us meaning is one such burden. When it is released, the heart feels lighter. Attention shifts from searching to noticing, from wanting to appreciating. Meaning then reveals itself quietly. It appears in presence rather than explanation. It lives in the way you meet each moment without resistance. By letting go of the idea that life must deliver meaning on demand, you allow meaning to emerge naturally, without effort or expectation. Buddhism places awareness at the center of understanding because awareness changes how life is experienced. When the mind is scattered, pulled in many directions by worry, memory, and anticipation, life can feel flat or empty. Even when many things are happening, the heart may feel disconnected. This emptiness does not come from a lack of meaning in life. It comes from a lack of presence. When awareness is absent, moments pass unnoticed. The mind rushes ahead or looks backward, rarely settling where it is. In this state, life feels incomplete because it is never fully met. Buddhism teaches that meaning cannot be felt when attention is divided. Meaning requires presence. When the mind becomes present, something simple yet profound occurs. Life begins to feel whole. Ordinary moments gain weight and depth, not because they change, but because they are finally seen. Awareness gathers attention and brings it home to what is happening now. In this gathering, experience feels complete rather than fragmented. Awareness reveals meaning by turning attention toward what is already here. The breath, the body, sounds, emotions, and thoughts all become objects of clear seeing. Nothing special needs to happen. Meaning does not arrive from outside. It appears when attention rests fully on experience without trying to change it. The mind often believes that meaning must be searched for, discovered, or achieved. This belief keeps attention moving endlessly. Buddhism gently challenges this idea. It teaches that the more the mind searches, the more meaning feels distant. Searching assumes absence. Awareness reveals presence. As awareness deepens, the need to search naturally fades. The mind sees clearly what is happening and no longer feels deprived. A quiet sense of sufficiency replaces longing. This does not mean that life becomes perfect or free from difficulty. It means that each moment feels complete in itself, regardless of content. Awareness also changes the relationship with thought. Thoughts continue to arise, but they are seen as events rather than instructions. When thoughts are observed instead of followed, they lose their power to pull attention away. The mind becomes steadier, and experience feels more grounded. This steadiness allows meaning to emerge without effort. When attention is stable, even small experiences feel significant. A moment of stillness, a shared glance, or a quiet breath carries depth. Meaning no longer needs to be explained or justified. It is felt directly. Buddhism emphasizes that awareness is not something to be created, it is something to be remembered. Awareness is already present beneath distraction. When distraction softens, awareness becomes obvious. Meaning then appears not as a concept, but as a felt sense of connection with life. Awareness also reveals meaning by reducing resistance. When the mind stops arguing with experience, it opens to what is. This openness allows even difficult moments to be included rather than rejected. Inclusion brings understanding. Understanding brings peace. When awareness is steady and open, life no longer feels divided into meaningful and meaningless parts. Everything belongs. Joy and difficulty are both seen as expressions of life, unfolding. This inclusive view removes the pressure to extract meaning from specific events. Meaning becomes the background of all experience. In Buddhism, meaning is not something added to life through belief or explanation. It is uncovered when attention becomes clear and present. As awareness strengthens, life feels less fragmented and more whole. The mind no longer asks constantly what life means. It begins to experience meaning directly, moment by moment, simply by being here. In Buddhist teaching, a meaningful life is not measured by what you collect, achieve, or possess. It is not defined by status, success, or how full your life appears from the outside. Instead, meaning is found in how you relate to your own mind, to other people, and to the constant changes that shape existence. Life gains depth not through accumulation, but through the quality of connection and understanding. How you relate to your thoughts plays a central role. Thoughts arise naturally, shaping perception and emotion, but they do not need to control behavior or define identity. When thoughts are met with awareness rather than belief, the mind becomes lighter. You no longer feel compelled to follow every worry, judgment, or desire. This creates inner space, and in that space, meaning begins to settle quietly. A life guided by awareness rather than mental noise feels grounded and sincere. Relationships are another place where meaning reveals itself. Buddhism does not suggest withdrawing from others, but engaging without attachment or fear. When you relate to people with presence, patience, and care, connection becomes nourishing rather than draining. Meaning is not found in how many people surround you, but in how honestly and kindly you meet those who do. Listening fully, speaking gently, and allowing others to be as they are deepens life more than any achievement. Change itself is also something to relate to wisely. Life is constantly shifting. Circumstances evolve, roles change, and nothing remains fixed. When change is resisted, struggle follows. When change is accepted, balance becomes possible. A meaningful life does not avoid change, it learns how to move with it. This flexibility reduces suffering and allows peace to exist even during uncertainty. When actions arise from clarity rather than fear, life feels aligned. Fear-driven action is tense and reactive. It seeks security, approval, or control. Clarity-driven action is calm and intentional. It responds rather than reacts. Even simple actions, when guided by clarity, feel purposeful. Meaning does not depend on the size of the action, but on the presence behind it. Kindness plays an essential role in this understanding. When kindness replaces grasping, relationships soften and inner conflict lessens. Kindness is not weakness. It is an expression of understanding. It recognizes shared vulnerability and responds with care rather than judgment. A life guided by kindness feels meaningful because it reduces harm and increases connection, both inwardly and outwardly. Simplicity is often misunderstood as lack or limitation. Buddhism presents simplicity as freedom. It is freedom from unnecessary struggle, excess desire, and constant comparison. A simple life is not empty, it is spacious. When the mind is not crowded with endless wanting, it becomes calm and attentive. This calm allows meaning to emerge naturally. Living simply does not require abandoning responsibilities or pleasures. It requires seeing clearly what truly matters. When attention is focused on what nourishes rather than what distracts, life feels coherent. Energy is no longer scattered. Effort becomes intentional rather than exhausting. A meaningful life, then, is not something to be achieved in the future. It is something expressed now through understanding, care, and presence. Each moment offers the opportunity to relate wisely. When this relationship becomes gentle and clear, life feels complete, not because it is perfect, but because it is lived honestly. Buddhist teaching points toward a meaning that is quiet and enduring. It does not depend on circumstances or outcomes. It arises from how you meet life itself. When struggle lessens and understanding deepens, simplicity reveals its true nature not as lack, but as freedom. The meaning of this life does not arrive as a final answer or a perfect explanation. It reveals itself quietly in the way you live, moment by moment. When awareness replaces searching, when understanding replaces struggle, and when care guides your actions, life begins to feel whole without needing justification. You do not need to make life extraordinary for it to be meaningful. You only need to meet it honestly. In each breath, each choice, and each response to change, meaning is already present. When the mind is clear and the heart is open, life no longer asks to be defined. It simply asks to be lived. Rest in this simplicity. Let go of the pressure to find meaning somewhere else. In living with awareness, kindness, and balance, you may discover that the meaning of this life was never missing. It was unfolding with you all along.